Good afternoon. This is Chris Brecher with the Chart Patterns Mastery, July 25th, 2024 nightly video. What's this about? It's about the tail wagging the dog. Yeah, the NASDAQ couldn't get out of its own way, as you see here. So it made it less likely that the ES would stay up. So if you take this on a 15-minute chart, you'll see what I'm talking about. Yeah, the NASDAQ getting nailed on near the close. And that made it less likely that the ES was going to go up, which is exactly what happened. Now, what's going to happen now? Now, keep in mind, we made money in Apple. We made money in Netflix. We made money in Broadcom. We made money in PAC-B. And we'll figure out what we're going to do tomorrow and be as flat as possible going into tomorrow because the volatility is pretty much in the sky. So let me show you on what I'm seeing. Number one, I'm seeing the daily chart of the S&P. And you'll see the NASDAQ is already at these levels, right in this level, right there about June 10th. That would put the ES down just a bit more. Here is the NASDAQ at that level already, right in this area. Remember, it's a zone. It's not an exact price. So it's decisively under the 50. And the S&P is sort of at the 50. So it could go lower. It's not the ES that I want to buy. It's the NASDAQ if I find stocks that are at support. And I see a reversal pattern. So just keep that in mind. Now, one thing I wanted to show you because a lot asked. Unusual put activity. What does it look like? Well, let's go into earnings tonight. So unusual put activity is when there's usually put action that sort of sticks out, that the volume is a lot higher than the call action, and they don't have a lot of open interest at that price. So I'll show you what we're talking about in here. We're going to take what's gotten destroyed tonight. So tonight. So you'll see DXCM down 40 balloons right here. You see Deckers, thank goodness we didn't play on the upside. So you'll see the put-call ratio. You see that in Deckers? That means more calls than puts. Put sizzle means 2.8 times the normal amount, but because of more calls than puts, you take that off your screen. DXCM, on the other hand, 21 put sizzle and the more puts than calls over here. And the stock's down 40. The problem with that is the options were so expensive, it was hard to even figure what to trade. But that's what we mean by unusual put activity. So you have Columbia Sportswear. Put call 13.8 and the put sizzle 1.5. And sure enough, it went down. In fact, almost everyone that went down had a lot of put sizzle. So just keep that in mind. So let's just take this. I'll show you. Boston Beer, put sizzle. Dexcom, put sizzle. You know, Digital Realty. So you see what's going on here on these, but the problem with like DXCM, because I was looking at it, but I couldn't figure what options. It was really hard to go and buy things that expire tomorrow at 45 cents. Down here, the 88s. So then you might be like, well, why didn't we buy the 95-100 put spread? The put debit spread. Well, that was no bargain either on prices. So that was about $1. So yeah, in hindsight, it looks great, but keep in mind it was 12 points out of the money with a day to go. But yeah, that's going to work. Now what we're going to watch is what we were looking at earlier is something like Charter. And I didn't touch it, but they had unusual put activity under the market. So I'm dying to see if that works tomorrow. So I'm just telling you, you're going to have every quarter we have this kind of stuff happening. So we'll see what happens in there. Now, when it comes to the broad market, the first thing I'm going to be watching tomorrow is definitely going to be watching the individual NASDAQ stocks. So I'm going to go take the QQQ and show you. There's the QQQ and here's your support zone. Like I said, at the end of the day, it acted like garbage. So when that acted like garbage, it was much less likely that the ES was going to go up. You didn't have to buy it, but you sure didn't, sell it, but you sure didn't want to buy it. So you see that right there. Definitely see that right there. So then you'll be like, well, where could that put the SPX or the SPY for that matter? Well, that puts the SPY at the minimum at this gap. So right there. So maximum all the way down here. And that can still happen. Don't get me wrong. That can still go on. So definitely it's not the S&P. I want to short rallies in the S&P if the NASDAQ is selling off. Now keep in mind this rallied right to this resistance. I posted this earlier. So it got overbought at resistance and the NASDAQ was going down. So now the moment of truth is where could this go? So the first stop is probably this zone. It's not far from it. Just keep that in mind. So it's not far from this zone. Right in this zone right here. Now that's another, don't get me wrong, another 4 points. But like I said, if this goes down, I want to see this not lead the NASDAQ, or the NASDAQ not lead this. I want to see this get smoked and the NASDAQ refuses to go lower. And then I'll look for NASDAQ stocks to buy. Do you buy Apple? Well, Apple's a broken stock. You know, I've talked about that. All we were doing with Apple is playing something around 220. But then when everything else went down, it got pulled with it. So we're not an Apple. That's where you short it up at that area. It never got high enough for me to short it, though. I wanted that 221 area. So definitely that. How about NVIDIA? NVIDIA is also a broken stock that rallied to resistance. I'm not touching NVIDIA until I see that. Now, I know that's ugly. But when I see markets go down, I got to trade extremes. That's what I'm going to look for in NVIDIA. Broadcom hit support. So definitely hit the support area. How about Netflix? Oh, Netflix is at support. Good support. So definitely that's a stock I'd look at on the long side if markets stabilize. So that's where I am. Have a great night. Talk to you later. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chris Brecher, and I'm Senior Managing Director of Stocks at Simpler Trading. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you like our content, please leave us a like and a comment down below. Also, be sure to subscribe to our channel and click the bell notification icon so you never miss any of our great new content coming out. Good trading, and we'll see you at the next video. Take care.